What's going on, guys? Welcome to I Agree Go Cavs, episode 6. We're already up to 6. I'm your host, Jacob at Roaches and 13, joined by my good friend, Dave. Dave, how you doing tonight, man?
I'm doing wonderful, man. How you doing?
I ate some Apollo wings just a little bit ago, so fucking.
Stomach bubbling.
Oh, dude, I drank too much milk. That's the problem. You drink that milk, and then you're like, okay, now I've got dairy problems for the rest of the night.
Crazy mixture there. Look.
And then it catches me like that, and I don't even. Dude, I appreciate you spending some time with me tonight here to talk Cavs because I know I enjoy following you and the things that you've said online, and I really wanted to kind of get some of your perspective there. Real quick before we dive into that, guys, I got the homage on again tonight. The Let Them Know homage. I think it's pretty good. There'll be links in the descriptions if you guys want to go check that stuff out. I think they're the best, man. They're so soft and they're local and clean. I think around Columbus and stuff is where they're mainly based out of. They got all 32 NFL teams and all 30 NBA, and they got the Guardians. They got Ohio State. They got everything you guys need. So you want to check those guys out over at Homage. Links are in the description down below. So Dave, I wanted to dive into a few things with you coming off of our last episode was on Saturday prior to both of the games played against LA, both the Lakers and the Clippers, which I successfully predicted. I'm just saying, I said they'd win the first one, lose the second one, although they should have won both of them. So we got some interesting things to talk about. The sky is falling on Cavs Twitter, and you are very well versed in Cavs and Browns Twitter, so you know exactly how this song and dance goes week after week. But let's just start with last night, and we'll dive into some more specifics. But where are you after last night? Does last night change anything for you on the overall outlook, or like, you know what I mean? Like as much as one game could.
Yeah, absolutely not, man. I stayed up and I watched the full game while I was typing the paper. Sorry if you hear my daughter in the background, but I stayed up and I was typing the paper and I just watched the full game. And, honestly, they looked great up until about that 5-minute mark in the fourth quarter. And you got to think about it, man. They were on a back-to-back. They're in LA. I think Tom just went back an hour. So it's also a whole nother time zone switch. So I think the fatigue kicked in with about 5 minutes left. I'm content. They won 8 straight. If they win 8 straight again and lose another one, that's 16-2,
Yeah.
I'm content. I'm not panicking at all.
See, and I appreciate that because I fell asleep. Like I watched the first quarter, and I'm no joke though. I went to sleep, and I was like, oh no, they've got this, because that's how they were playing, man. You know, like you said, until toward the end, and you can see it. I did rewatch it on my lunch break today. You could kind of see it, especially from DG, where he was just I just had tired legs there at the end. I just thought that it would just. I don't know. It kind of, and I think some interesting things will come, and a lot of things will get alleviated by Rubio when he comes back, I think. And
for sure. I just think, it was a couple mental laps from, the players and even the coach. If you look back, I just think JB, he had a little, I don't know, man. He had a couple moments where it's like, what are you doing? Like, like bringing in Okoro to guard PG, that last important possession where PG got the and one. I don't think that was a good look, man, because Okoro had been sitting down practically the whole quarter. I don't know if it was the whole quarter, but it was a good amount of the quarter. And I just knew he was going to foul him. I'm like, he's going to foul him. I just hope it's not an and one. But boom, and one. So I think fatigue kicked in on even the coach side, because he had a mental lapse where I'm just like, man, come on. But again, it's no panic.
Yeah, and that's actually kind of a good point that you brought up, because that's kind of where I wanted to head with this. Was for me, when I see all of these like overreactions and all the things that, and of course I didn't get to see the game until halfway through the day, so I had read all of this stuff, before I had seen the rest of the game there. I thought that it just was, and I know that you've kind of talked about this. Sometimes I feel like that JB's kind of rotations are kind of odd. Like Jetty gets 3 minutes. Like you can say whatever you want about Jetty, but he's playing better than a Coro, like Dean Wade's playing better than a Coro, like, and he does these things where like I thought it was interesting. Raul Neto plays 0 minutes in both of those games, which I thought was very bizarre. And I know that you don't have the trust in them as you do your backcourt, because I think this is one of the best backcourts, if not the best backcourt in basketball right now. And I get some of those things, but like, where do you sit overall with JB? Are you content overall, kind of like you talked about with his coaching decision? Is it just kind of some rotational things that you've got issues with?
I just think with JB, man, I think he's still learning. He's still learning how to manage a roster with, a star like Donovan. DG's a star. Evan is teetering, so he's still learning. But some things is kind of like, I'm watching. So it's like certain things you got to understand. We understand, like you said, Wade is playing better. Seti's playing better. Everybody's playing better than Okoro. If we see it, I'm sure he sees it because he's with, Okoro every day. I just think you got to put your players in a position to be successful. And if that means sitting them down, then you got to sit them down and have them watch the action. Okoro, he just seems really a step behind. Teams aren't paying attention to him while we're on offense. They're basically playing 5-on-4. His defense has been shaky, and that's what he's known for. So at the end of the day, you have to make the best decision for the team. I know you want to cater to your players. You don't want your players to turn on you. You don't want your players upset with you, but you have to make the best decision for the team. And even with Kevin Love, I'm a Kevin Love fan. He bought us a championship. But I feel like JB, he leaves him in, slightly too long. Kevin Love comes in. If he hit his first three, it's bombs away. Good. But, there are a lot of defensive lapses that happen when Kevin Love is on the court. So JB has to be quick on that. He has to be quick to pull them out, if those defensive lapses are consistent. I just think JB needs to pay a little bit more attention, make a couple more tweaks as the time goes on, and then I think we'll be good. Regardless, we're winning, so he's doing something right.
We were talking on the show Saturday night, asking kind of the question, like, is this team the deepest in basketball? Like, just because of the way that they won against Detroit last week, which I still is just almost asinine to me that you win that game by almost 30 points and your top two players didn't play. And on top of that, it's like you don't have Ricky Rubio either. So like you didn't even have your second best point out there. You didn't have a true point guard in that game. And they win that game against Detroit. So it's really interesting kind of to see the swings that one game can seem to sway. Like you can tell, and I've had this kind of conversations like this offline, where you can kind of tell the difference between people that focus more on like things like football and then start watching basketball. Because I've done a lot of that where I didn't do this podcast last year. It was just the Browns podcast, and now I'm doing both. And it's like one game in 82 versus one game in 17 are just not the same thing. No. And I think sometimes that's the issue.
Yeah, I just think a lot of people, they tend to lock in on box scores and shooting percentages and things of such. But I think it's easier with basketball to focus in on one player. You can see specifically what this player is doing. Like if you watch me, you watch what I say, I'm always on Jared Allen to start out games. I'm always on him. Because he starts out the game just so slow. He's kind of just wandering around, kind of just finding his way. Whereas I say, if he starts out the game dominant, he's trying to dunk everything. He's rebounding. He got 20 boards last night, but he had 10 points. He should have had like 25 and 20, to be honest. I just feel like he's a player that needs to take that next step. Because if he comes out playing with force and Mobley, he's kind of, on the wing. He's kind of, mid-range, doing his thing. If J.A. comes out and plays with force, these games could be over by halftime. We just sitting there relaxing in the fourth quarter. But, back to the point, I just feel like basketball is far easier to focus on one player, you can see their energy, you can see how they're playing, you can see what they're bringing to the court. Whereas football, you got to go back and watch the all 22 to
Zoom out.
really focus on one particular player.
You can actually see everything for the most part on a broadcast view in basketball, as opposed to, like you said, with football, you need to zoom out on the all 22 and stuff like that. I think it's just interesting sometimes to see how these dramatic shifts, like go look at the same person's tweets like 2 days ago, and you're like, oh, this is where it gets a little interesting. So, okay, so we talked a little bit about Allen there. Like, oh, I want one more follow up question on Coro real quick, because this is very, I don't know. I think that he is the wars with him remind me very similar of the things that went on with Anthony Schwartz for the Browns in this preseason. I think like they're like the same thing. I think I've seen you and other people say that too, actually. Like, oh, they're the same thing. Do you think, like, is it in Okoro's head? Like, is he better than this, or is he never going to be able to get over this? Like, what's going on there?
I just think he's in his own head right now, man. It's kind of hard to explain because I mean, you watch him and it's just like he's kind of lost out there, man. It's the confidence isn't there. The I just feel like he came in as a defender, and he has his spots where he's pretty good. He could slow somebody down. I think it was he came in against, I don't know if it was Detroit or I don't know, one of the previous games, and he slowed somebody down to the point where it was like, okay, he's here, he's figuring it out. But once he misses that first open three, or once he misses that drive, that layup, I just think he's done for, man, and it kind of sucks to watch because he's a lottery pick, and I think he may be in his head. He may be thinking like, man, they could be looking to move me because I have several people ahead of me that get the ball and that are producing. So it's like, I don't know, man. At this point, he might be a lost cause. It might be a little early to say, but man, he's hard to watch right now, honestly.
Yeah, it's funny too, like, because you can tell, I think, when you watch him sometimes, like, it's there, like physically speaking, like talent wise, like it's absolutely there. Like you said, I you could probably Google it right now, some of his defensive performances just from this season, and you probably see some good series, and you
Yeah, for sure.
play some good ones in there and things like that. But like, I can't think of, like, we talked about this when we were talking about how deep this roster is. It was like, Okoro and Dean Wade together against Detroit had 9 points total, and they won that game. And then when we kind of talk about that sort of stuff, I think it's interesting, especially as guys like Rubio come back and they start trying, once they get to 100%. I think it's going to be interesting where Okoro falls in that rotation when that happens, when they don't need like Mitchell or Karras to play point when DG's off the court, when they're able to put Rubio in there and stuff like that. Is that kind of change those sort of things to where he gets less and less minutes? I think that's really, really interesting. So, okay, so my next question kind of revolves around where do they go? Do they need another piece? Like, is this team as constructed when they get healthy with Rubio? I know there's a report about Windler's going to get an injection to see if that'll kind of help. Like, if he's able to get back on there, and I don't know necessarily what he can bring you anyway, but necessarily. But like, when Rubio comes back, is there still a piece that you want to make? Is it a big piece? Is it a small piece? Like, where do you sit on that?
I just think there's definitely a piece we need, in order to make that long run. Prior to a lot of people kill me for this, but I was like, go get Kevin Durant because we needed a scoring wing. That was prior to us acquiring Spider. But I think that wing position is, something that we need, and I'll go a little more in depth. Karras, he's a starting small forward right now. I'm often defending him because he brings a lot to the table. He can handle the ball. He can get to a spot easily. Like he gets there, he just doesn't finish all the time. And he's shown that he's capable of passing the ball. Running a team, being a playmaker. That's good. but I still think you need that wing guy that can, he can either create like Karras can, or he's just a 3 and D guy. I've been big on. I really wanted Bogey in that Donovan Mitchell trade. I wanted him bad because that would have pretty much solidified the roster. But I've been big on, Dorian Finney-Smith down in Dallas, just a 3 and D guy that you could send out there, to irritate Giannis, irritate KD, irritate Tatum, Brown, because the East is full of wings, man, and we have a backcourt that could, they could fight, they could, go against anybody. But once we get into, the later parts of the season and going into the playoffs, we could be asking too much of them. You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
I think we need a wing bad, and I even think, another big wouldn't hurt either, because Robin Lopez, he's okay, a little goofy, but I don't think another big wouldn't hurt either.
Yeah, I love the person that Robin Lopez is. Like, he's one of those characters. Like, they asked him about that shot, and he started just saying all these big words when he threw the shot up from the ground and he made it.
Yeah.
He started saying these. I don't know what he was saying. Like, he's saying all these like random big words. I was like feeling stupid. Listen, I'm like, I don't know what that means. And he's on there, and I thought that's great. I'm a big Kevin Love guy too, so I really appreciate when you bring that up. And it's so funny because I was talking to you the other day and you said, hey, I tweet like I'm sitting on the couch talking to you. Yeah. And I'm like, oh my God, like ever since you told me that, I'm like, your tweets made even more sense to me. It was like, oh, okay, yeah, that's good. So let's say they don't acquire another wing. Like, let's just say that they just go with what I still think. I don't put it past Kobe to not like be like, okay, let's, even if it's not a big piece necessarily, like at least try to do something. Yeah. It's like, fuck them picks, right? Like, we don't care.
Yeah.
We don't need those damn picks. They're not going to be lottery picks.
Anyway. Yeah. They'll be late picks anyway. Get them out of here.
That's what Nick was telling me. That's what Carnes was telling me the other day. He was like, well, why does it matter? They're not going to be lottery picks. Like, who cares about those picks? So let's say they just get healthy. They get Rubio back. Can this team compete? Like, and when I say that, I mean for a title. Because I was listening to, I'm very admittedly have been hot and cold on the team since LeBron left. It's just there was some really bad basketball that I didn't watch, and I'm just not as well versed as I was probably 6 or 7 years ago. But I'm getting back to it, and I'm really enjoying this group. But everything I try to absorb going into this year was like they could be in the play-in, like they could be where they were last year, because last year it was ahead of schedule. So they could be where they were last year, maybe a little bit better. I saw some people putting them at like the 6th seed, like somewhere around 6th in the East, and some stuff like that. I saw that probably as high as it is. I had this question with Tyler on Saturday when I said, after watching them beat Detroit, having beat Boston, beat Detroit without your top 2 guys, and not Rubio, and then they beat LA in a game, the first game in which I felt like as soon as they took that lead, it was theirs. Like they were going to beat the Lakers. Like once they took that lead, they were able to take the will from the Lakers.
That's all you got to do.
Yeah, which they almost did it to the Clippers too. But so is there any reason, like, can this team compete for the finals? Like, I mean, Bill Simmons said it the other day. He wouldn't be surprised if they come out of the East. Like, as constructed, if JB continues to learn, like the stuff you've talked about here, and maybe Okoro finds a shot, things like that. As construction, a healthy Cavs, can they compete for a spot in the finals?
The Cleveland fan in me is like, yeah, hell yeah. But I just think there needs to be some moves made, I think, because I think you're asking too much of DG and Mitchell. Honestly, Mitchell and Love are the only really experienced ones with making, playoff runs, or, being successful in the playoffs. But I think the East is tough. I think because you have Milwaukee and you have Boston, who, we kind of got their number right now. But they have the experience. We have teams ahead of us that are experienced in making long playoff runs. So I think there needs to be a move made for us to really be those title contenders. But I won't put it past them because just watching these guys play now, it looks like they're out to prove everybody wrong. And I was one of those ones again prior to Spider, 7, 6. Loading. Oh, there we go. We're back. But
Yeah.
I kind of, that changed, because he's experienced. I watched him go head to head with Jamal Murray, in the bubble. And both of them had like 50 points. I'm just like, this kid, he can get after it, man. And he's emphasized, his defense this year. So he's not only coming out giving everybody buckets, but he's competing on the defensive end as well, and that's huge. But I think we need a piece, I think we're a step away from that trophy talk, because I think, Mobley, he's still finding himself.
Mhm.
JA, he still needs to become that dominant force. And then, you got Karras, DG, who they're not experienced, and you got Mitchell. So I think that experience will be huge for us. So I think grabbing a player who, has some playoff experience and, can come in and help us produce, I think that'll be very beneficial for us.
Yeah, it's funny too because it's like I saw some people saying that oh, people overreacted to last night's loss, but at the same time they're overhyping after the 8 and some things like that. So it's really interesting. I like to get people on here that have some slightly different opinions because like I'm a full bore. I'm like, fuck yeah, let's do it. Let's cancel our June plans and let's go. And I'm realistic. I understand that there's still some things out there because that really matters when you talk about playoff series. Because like in the NFL, you can just get hot and win a Super Bowl. Because you just win 3-4 games in a row. I mean, like the 9-7 Giants did it to the perfect Patriots. Aaron Rodgers' Super Bowl was that same way. They were a wild card. It's just not that way with basketball, just because it's the best of 7 and things like that. You've got to be the better team and the experienced team for longer. And I think that's really interesting because sometimes you don't think about that. And I didn't really think about that in terms of the core of this team not having like they had those 2 play-in games and while they weren't playoff games, I think they were playoff games, but that's still 2 games. That's 2 games of experience over Boston, who just won the East, and Giannis has plenty of playoff experience. I'm very excited for that. I'm very excited to match up with Milwaukee when that time comes, just because I'm not sure how they match up. Like, I don't know how that'll, like, is there certain aspects, because now I'm thinking about it. I'm trying to think about, can anyone guard Giannis? And I'm not sure about that.
I mean, I would slightly think about sticking Mobley on him.
Yeah.
I think that's our best bet, but Mobley has shown that he can get in foul trouble. So it's kind of you just got to build that box. Tilt the defense towards him, and just kind of look to draw charges. Look to clog the paint, slow him down, make him a shooter.
One of my favorite plays last night in that first quarter was Kevin Love got ready to draw another charge, and he jumps up there and he hops and he stops and he gets it just perfectly. And I don't remember who had the ball for the Clippers, but he saw that that's what Love was going to do. And you see him just kind of pull back and shoot, and then they call a blocking foul. And I'm like, old dude knew the scouting report on K Love, and he was like, oh, no, you're not doing that. So yeah, so that's okay. I really like this conversation. I appreciate your time for coming out here and doing this on a Tuesday night. This will release on the Wednesday. I've got just like one final question. I keep asking everybody this question. It's very important. Do you think that Dean Wade's beard is too big for his face?
No, I think it's a good fit, man. Especially if he keeps shooting like that.
Yeah.
Keep the beard, man. And JB's better. He's Dean Wade. Speaking of Dean Wade, man, he shut me up. I want to give him a shout out, man. He has come in. He's done pretty much everything that's asked of him. And I was one of those ones that was like, he's just yeah. But Dean Wade, man, if you're watching this, man, hey, keep going, keep shooting that rock. And JB, stop putting him on an island like that. He's a great team defender, but he's not a stopper, you know.
He gets out there. He does his best, though. He'll give you everything.
Oh yeah, man, that's my guy, man. I'm a 32 guy now. Okay. I got my pom poms now. I know a lot of the people I interact with don't like that, man. Because Dean Wade, I was on him tough too. You know,
Hey, but I think a lot of that stuff was justified prior to this year. I think he's just kind of come out there. Dave, real quick, man, before we check off here, let everybody know where they can find you.
Oh man, you can find me on Twitter. Twitter name's right here, DWill__15. You know, if you wanna follow somebody that's no filter, you go gotta tell it like it is in a nice way. Hey man, come on, you know, follow back. Let's interact. Let's get it done. You know, go Cleveland, go Cavs, go Browns, go everybody.
All right, man. I appreciate it, guys. Listen, that is it for us. We'll be back. This show will be back on Saturday night. I believe we'll be back on Saturday night because they play on Friday. We're trying to kind of go around that schedule. It is Wednesday, so Faithful Dogs tonight, as well as Dog Chug, and probably some other shows. We got all kinds of damn shows on this network. So we appreciate you guys, and we will see you guys next time.